Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to this video lesson which is all about creating slideshows using ProShow Gold software. Now before you begin making the slideshow itself, the first thing you want to do really is organize your pictures. Organize the pictures you want to use and the music as well, so you have everything in one folder so you're ready to start. So create a folder on your desktop. I've called it Slideshow. And then to help organize your pictures, if you just go to View in Windows and select Film Strip, it's a nice easy way to look through all of your pictures and decide the rough order you want them to appear in. This makes life easier. If you do this bit first, life will be easier when you start making your slideshow itself. So find the pictures you want to use, which should all be related in terms of either the subject matter, such as landscapes or portraits, or perhaps they're a particular trip and a record of an event you've attended. I'm choosing a bunch of pictures from a safari trip that I went on last year. So I've put 20 or 25 images into one particular folder. There they all are along the film strip view. And then what I've done, I've numbered them all 01, 02, 03, 04. So as part of the file name, they're all in pretty much the rough order of sequence that I want them to appear in. So once you've done that and you've got 20 or 25 images together, we can close down this folder and open up our ProShow Gold software. Now we need to create a new show, so we'll just go to File and choose New Show, and that gives us some options to choose on. First of all, we need a show title. Now I'm going to call mine Kenya because that's where my slideshow is going to be based, and then we need to pick an aspect ratio. You've got two real choices, 4:3, which is Academy or standard ratio television, or you've got 16:9 or widescreen. Widescreen is the more popular choice nowadays because most computer monitors are widescreen, and indeed most televisions are as well. So pick one of those two. I think we'll go for widescreen in this example and then click OK. And you can see in your preview you've got the widescreen shaped preview present. Right, that folder we created on the desktop, what we need to do in the folders list is navigate through to find it. So we just go through, there's our slideshow folder, and here we can see all the pictures that we chose. There's a Kenya camp right the way through to the Kenya treescape. So what we're going to do is select all of those first and foremost, click on the first one, and then scroll down the list until you get to the last image, the last JPEG image. Hold down the Shift key and click on that as well, and it will select all of those pictures from the folder. All you then need to do is drag them from this point here down to this point here where it says slide. That's our slide list view, so grab them and then drag them and drop them where it says slide, and they'll all be imported into a slideshow. Now you can see on the taskbar here, this is the images being imported as I go through. I've got 23 images. It takes a little while for them to get there, but after a while you'll soon see that the file names turn to bold, and then they appear in the slide list view at the bottom here. Once you've got your pictures in, the next step is to get your music in, and we've got our MP3 in the same folder as well. We're going to choose this track here called Slider, so you simply grab hold of that and drag it onto the soundtrack bar just at the bottom and release the mouse. And then that too will be imported into ProShow, and if we scroll right the way back to the beginning, you can see the waveform of the soundtrack. The reason you don't see it at the end at the moment is because the soundtrack is shorter than the default value set for the slides. But to make a basic slideshow, we can change that very, very quickly and easily, because what we're going to do is synchronize the length of the soundtrack to the length of the slides. This is dead simple to do. Just go up to Audio in the top menu bar and choose Sync Show to Audio. Click on that just once and the whole lot will be set up so that your slideshow length is exactly the same as your music track length. And if we just pop down to the end of the taskbar, or the end of the show rather, you can see there that it's exactly the same length. So our last slide will fade out at the end of the music. Okay, so that's how you create a basic show, and all you need to do now is sit back and watch it. So if you click on the first slide, then up in the preview window you can just press play and see your show take place. And there it is. There's our first slide mixing through to our second slide. Then of course, after this dissolve here, we'll go on to our third slide, and so on and so forth. And you can see how the music works with your slideshow as well. I'll just hit the spacebar to stop it. That's your stop and start, the spacebar for playing back the preview of your show. You'll see that there are some problems out of it, and the problems are mainly these black bars down the side. Because we're in widescreen, it's a different aspect ratio to the 3:2 aspect ratio that we shot our pictures at. And it gets even worse. If we scroll down a bit further, you can see that when we use a vertical image, you can see we've got some horrendous black bars which occupy more screen real estate than the picture itself. So this is the kind of thing we have to change to make our slideshow look nice and professional. And the way we change these things is with motion effects. Now let's just go back to the beginning of the show, and I'm just going to double click on this first slide, our opening slide, double click on that, and we get the slide options window up on screen. Now this gives us two views. If we click on the motion part of the slide options window, there's all kinds of things down here, but click on motion because that's where our motion effects are, and you get two views. One is the starting position of the slide, and the second one is the ending position of the slide. And you can change these. First of all, with our starting position, we want to get rid of those black bars. So let's just zoom in a bit using the zoom control at the top of the screen, and that trims our slide. We can then move it around as we see fit, but that trims it down to get rid of those black bars. We then look at our ending position, and we can go a bit further and create some movement in the slide itself. So we can zoom into somewhere around there. That's the kind of thing. And then we position it. So this is where our slide's going to start from in its motion, and it will go through a little journey to get to this point here. So if we click on Done, we can see how that works. Make sure the first slide's selected and then press play in the preview window. And then we can see that nice motion effect running through. Now on this actual video tutorial, it'll look a bit staccato, but I can assure you when you try it on your own screen, it'll be perfectly smooth. The frame grabbing staccato stuff is simply a result of the video compression we use to make these videos a manageable size. So with that out of the way, let's move on to our second slide and add some motion effects to that one. Well, here we've got a helicopter. We're going to start in much tighter on this particular one, and we'll also add a little bit of rotation because we can do that too. We can actually spin the slide round. Take care when you're using the rotation control because it's very, very easy to make your audience feel seasick if you overdo it. So use rotation with a bit of restraint. We're now going to our ending position. We need to fill the frame, of course, to get rid of the black bars. And I think we'll just move that down a touch so it occupies a nice central position in the frame. That's good. What this all means is that our slide here, the duration of it is going to be 3.656 seconds, as determined by the length of our music. And it'll start on this position here and end on this position here. Rather than clicking Done and going back to check it in the preview, what we can do is simply move through all our slides just by clicking on these buttons here, move on to the next one, use our zoom controls, and zoom in a bit here, perhaps for our end frame, like so, then move on to the next one. So we can actually go through quite quickly. It'll still take you sort of 10-20 minutes to do all these, but we can work fairly quickly and actually set up our slideshow as we want it to be. So a bit of zooming, just getting rid of those black bars. Perhaps we'll go in tighter to get to the summit of our mountain. Then our next slide, well, we'll start tight on this one and start right on the summit of Mount Kenya, standing proud there, and we'll come out to a nice wide angle view of the same mountain. That's good. Then we go to our next slide, and we'll perhaps start on a close-up of this particular tree. Something like that could be good. And then we'll come out to a wider view, taking in the plain as well. Something like that's nice. And you get the picture. You run through all your slides in this way. When you finish, you click Done, and then you can check all your transitions and your slide motion on the preview screen. But one thing, let's just move down a little bit and jump the gun a touch and find a vertical slide. There we go, this one here, the next one in line. We'll just double click on that to bring up our slide options window. This is where we have these problems with the black bars that we need to get rid of. So let's zoom right in. We're going to go for a kind of a tilt down. So we'll start with our Land Rovers like so. And then we'll go to an end position, filling the frame again, getting rid of those black bars on either side. We'll end on our character here. That should do the trick nicely. Okay, so that's how to deal with the awkward vertical slides. It certainly does not mean you don't have to use verticals, but it means you've got to be a little bit creative about the way you use them. So find the focus of your picture and either start on it and move away from it, or indeed start away from it and move onto it for your ending position. Right, so I'll take a little while just to run through all of my slides and add motion effects, so I'll join you in a short while. There we go, and we're just coming up to our last motion effect. We'll start on a tight shot of the tree, I think. Just zoom in and adjust the position of that. And we'll come out to a nice wide shot showing the whole thing, that wonderful sky in all its glory. That's the kind of thing. So that's the last of our motion effects just put in. Now we'll just click done, and all those will take place. And now all we have to do is sit back and watch the slideshow. Now everything's in place. We'll go back to the beginning, click on the first slide, press play, and we can watch it all the way through. And now we can see some nice dissolves and nice motion effects coming through to complement the music that we're using, and everything looks a bit slicker and a bit more professional. And this is the time to actually review your show and look out for any errors or any problems that it may have. You may find you've left a little bit of black bar down one side, or a motion effect doesn't quite work with the one that precedes it or the one that comes after it. So just have a look through your entire show and see how everything is going together. Right, well that's all taking shape quite nicely, so I'm just going to stop the show by hitting the spacebar and accept that everything's probably looking there or thereabouts. Once you've played your show through and checked it and everything's looking okay, of course what you need to do is add some captions, some titles and some credits, because no show is complete without those things. So if we just go back to the beginning of our show, then we can click on the first slide and decide on what caption we're going to use. Now double click on the slide just as you did to bring up the slide options window, and instead of choosing motion this time, what we're going to pick is captions. And in the captions window, all we have to do is type the title or indeed the credits for our particular slideshow. So if we go up to where it says selected caption, type in there the title of your show. Kenya 2007 will do for this one, and you can see there it comes up on screen. Now this works a bit like a word processor, this part of it, and all you have to do is choose your caption color, your caption size, the font you're using, the position of it, all the usual things, so you can bring up a nice tidy caption or title on screen. Once you've selected all those things, you can then position the caption whereabouts you want it to go, whether it's in the sky or in the middle or wherever. And under the Position tab in the Caption Placement option, the handy thing to remember is that if you set 50 and 50, that's the middle of the frame. So that's a handy thing to remember if you need to position something dead center. When it comes to setting colors, all you need to do is click on the Set Color box, and ProShow's color wheel will come up. You can select from this any color you like, really, simply by clicking on the triangle inside here or the wheel around the outside. We're going to go for quite a nice bold yellow, so something like that should do the trick. Yeah, that looks okay. Now if you fancy it, you can actually pick a colour for your caption from the image itself. Instead of using the colour wheel to mix up the colour you want, what you can do is simply click on the eyedropper and then select a colour from the image. If we went for this nice blue sky, that will give our caption exactly the same hue and saturation as the part of sky we selected. So all kinds of options there. You can also input RGB values if you want to. So if you know your numbers for red, green and blue, then you can actually put in the RGB code for the colour you want. If you want a pure red colour, that's 255 in red, 0 in green and 0 in blue, and you get the boldest red you can have. But in this example we're going to use a nice yellow colour that complements the blue of the sky and indeed works with the sort of burnt nature of the ground. And I happen to know that yellow is 255 2550, so I'm just going to type that in, and there's our nice bold yellow. That looks pretty good. Once you've chosen the colour you want, just click on Set Colour and it'll be set. For the drop shadow, again you can do the same thing. You can have the drop shadow on or off. On looks pretty good on video. By the time you get this to DVD or on your PC screen, a drop shadow is quite handy to have behind your titles. So you can set the colour for the drop shadow in the same way and also set the position for it too. There's an outline option as well, which it's up to you whether you use it or not. You can set the colour. Generally you won't need it if you're using a drop shadow, so think carefully before you set the outline, but of course it's up to you whether you choose to make use of the outline or not. Choosing the font of course is up to you. There's a huge selection of different typefaces to choose from, so you can pick whatever you want to pick, and whether you want it to be bold or it's regular or italicized or whatever you want. So all kinds of options there. The caption placement we've talked about, 50-50, and the center caption will get you bang in the middle. And then we have more options on text effects. What happens when you bring a caption up on screen is it's up for the entire duration of the slide, and the slide duration here, 3.656, is the same one that's set on all of our slides because we use the automated sync show to audio. But over that duration, the caption has to appear on screen, stay on screen, and then leave the screen, and there are all kinds of ways you can choose to make that happen. Fly in gives you a selection of options, and this governs how the caption actually gets onto the screen in the first place. Normal is what happens to the caption while it's up on screen, and the fly out is how it gets off the screen. Now there are all kinds of things to choose from. We could go for fade tail random as a fly in, and if you click on browse you can see what happens, and that's the effect you'll get with that particular selection with fade tail random. And after looking at that, you can either apply it or you can get rid of it altogether. But if you want, you can actually go through all of these different options and see how your captions are going to appear on the screen, and you can choose from any of them. One thing, if you're in any doubt, fade in is the one to go for. That's the most subtle and the most presentable transition you can have to bring a caption onto screen. So if in doubt, go for fade in. You'll obviously want to play with all these options, but at the end of the day, fade in is probably what you should choose at the end of it. Okay, so you can apply that, and then of course the same thing for normal, that's what happens when it's on screen, and the same thing for the fly out option. So once you've chosen all those things, just click done, and your caption will be superimposed on the screen. So we can have a look at that now. Let's just check the preview and see what happens. There we go, a nice subtle fade up, and then it fades down before the next slide comes in. And that's how you can give your show a really slick and professional finish using captions. Okay, well that's enough for now, but please join me in the next video where we'll look at timeline editing, refining your show, and of course adding some very slick finishing touches to give it a really professional feel. So please join me then for that video. Okay, thanks for listening, and see you soon.